What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. My name is Briggs and I have a confession. I live in Oregon and I love it. That doesn't mean it's without fault. Like all states, there's some baggage that they could stand to lose. Mostly that would be things going on around Portland, Oregon. If you talk to anyone that leans right, Portland is the liberal purgatory to San Francisco being the liberal hell. Yes, just to be clear, Portland is a little bit liberal to the politically unaffiliated. Oregon is a great state with many things going for it. Nature, beer, no sales tax, beer, interesting people, the list goes on. The downside is... Number 10, it can get a little too liberal in Portland. Yes, they can get a little too far to the left, even for the left-wing people in Portland. If you've stayed up on news and current affairs over the last decade or so, you are well aware that Portland leans left. If you've lived on planet Earth for more than a couple years, you probably have a good idea anyway. This, of course, has led to a lot of policies and laws that some would consider stupid. Some of them are so stupid they get their own category on this list, but one in particular caught my attention that it kind of tells you the mindset of the people of Oregon. If you phone in a fake bomb threat or something similar to a courthouse or a public building, you'll now be committing a disorderly conduct misdemeanor. So if you do call a threat, let's say to a courthouse, you get the same punishment as yelling profanity at a kid's party clown because he doesn't do balloon animals. I'm not even kidding. I guess in Oregon, you have to phone in a real threat before they take you seriously. And usually with things like that, it isn't until after the fact they realize you were serious. This law has been put into place because they don't want to ruin anyone's life because they were having a bad day. Yeah. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of the law, so don't be doing anything stupid like that. That these days, if you do something, you're pretty stupid. So yeah, that's just, I caught that one caught my attention and I thought, oh, that's just bad. That's just weird. Number 9, everyone is offended. Like I talked about in my California Sucks video, Oregon, California, and pretty much any place you have a younger population, you have this trend of being offended to get attention. I'll kind of go over it again because it's important, especially when it comes to Oregon. Being offended by the slightest thing is not a good way to live your life. When I was in high school, if you asked someone what nationality they were, where their family hails from, things like that, that was called a conversation. It was someone wanting to get to know you. They were interested in your story and your life, things like that. Sometimes it even led to things like, oh, I don't know, dating. Now, if you have the gall to ask someone something like that, you're engaging in what they call micro-racism. Yes, it's a thing, micro-racism. While I was working in corporate America, it was a cable company to be exact, here in Oregon, we had a class on this. Don't be a micro-racist. That was the name of the class. I was actually in this class and the presenter said, what is a micro-racist? I whispered to the guy next to me, is that a midget Nazi? I swear to God, I saw snot shoot out of his nose. Needless to say, I wasn't taking the class seriously, and I shouldn't have. Nobody should have. It was stupid. People are offended far too easily, and they're too politically correct these days. It's bad here in Oregon, especially in Portland. Number 8, too much tree hugging. Now, I agree with saving the planet. I think we need to change our ways or we're facing dire consequences, but it doesn't all have to be done today. Change is gradual. If you try and force people to change at too fast of a pace, they resist and nothing gets done. This year, 2019, here in Oregon, they tried to push a bill through the Democratic-controlled state government that would drastically lower greenhouse gases in different increments until 2050, when the state would be 100% green energy with greenhouse gases being reduced by about 80%. It does sound like a good plan. It's just completely unachievable in today's political and social climate. The bill was going too far. So the 11 Republicans in the Oregon Senate went into hiding. You can't have a vote without them, I guess. The governor said she was going to send the state police to round them up and bring them back so they'd be forced to vote. So they all fled to Idaho. One of those ridiculous idiots started quoting the movie Tombstone. He said, if you send the state police to get me, hell is coming with me. Now that's a quote from the movie Tombstone. Kurt Russell said that. It's like, dude, take it easy. You're a 65-year-old senator. The only thing coming with you is a bad hip, a bad toupee, and a day pack full of Ensure. Now, before anyone jumps on the Republicans for making such a spineless move, you should know that the Democrats pretty much did the same thing in 2001. It's like a tradition here in Oregon. Anyway, so that was just a little too much tree hugging, and that's just one example of many things like that go on here. Number 7, protesters. We have far too many protesters in Oregon. As far as protests go, ours are usually wild and exciting. Now, why does this suck? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about the good part. If you protest, it is a constitutionally protected activity, and as they should, the police in Oregon let people protest. I get comments all the time bashing the state and local police for not arresting or throwing these different groups out of the city or state. They can't. Against the Constitution. They do that type of crap in dictatorship dictatorships. Just like the Second Amendment tells you can own a firearm, it's a person's right to protest. That being said, there's a fine line between protesting and being a giant pain in the ass. Like blocking intersections or freeways. The only thing you're doing is making people late for work, and this sort of protest really just turns people against whatever cause you're representing. But it sucks when you have too many protests. That's all there is to it. We have far too many here in Oregon. Number 6, housing costs. The rental vacancy rate in Oregon for 2014 came in at 3.3%. It was the lowest vacancy rate in the entire country. This means if you had all the money you needed to live a comfortable life in any city in Oregon, Bend, Salem, Eugene, especially Portland, it was hard to actually get one. The housing market in the state was bad for people wanting to move to Oregon, and there were a lot of those people. From 2005 to 2018, Oregon was one of the most moved to states in the union. Demand was far greater than supply for 5 consecutive years during that time. Homes are often selling in the 300,000 to 500,000 range for square footage of about 1,500. The inventory levels are at their lowest point in 10 years, with most properties receiving multiple bids. Selling agents were actually telling their clients, make sure you're ready to leave because it'll be sold in less than a week and you'll have to be out of here in 4 to 5 weeks after that. So yeah, it was bad. Now, things have started to cool a touch in 2019, but it's still bad. Housing sucks in Oregon. Number 5, a tale of two mental states. Oregon is weird in more ways than one. It has a lot of conflicting views or situations. It is a red state and a very blue state at the same time. The western section, for the most part, is filled with Democrats, and the eastern part is overflowing with Republicans. The only reason the state votes Democrat every single election is the Portland metro area combined with Salem and Eugene has far more people than the rest of the state. Now, here is where it gets weird. Oregon is known for being one of the most friendly states in the union. It also has a very high quality of life rating and a great livability score. Yet, it also is one of the leaders in residents suffering from depression. All kinds of studies show that this is just a depressing state, and it has a lot to do with the cloudy skies and the rain all the time. It just brings people down. Seasonal affective disorder, or whatever that nonsense was a while ago. Anyway, yeah, it's just weird. They're back and forth on so many different things. Number 4, it's still getting crowded. So for a lot of years, Oregon was one of the top 3 states in growth, especially in the youth population, which also had been in the top 5 since about 2005. The youth migration has dipped, and in 2018, Oregon slipped to 11th in that category. The net migration peaked in 2016 and has slowed in the last 2 years. But here's the thing. Most feel this is just a temporary lull. The state's GDP is number 1 out of all 50 states. The GDP measures growth in the economic future of the state and can be a strong indicator of up-and-coming locations for businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, things like that. It also kind of tells you where places may be struggling in the upcoming years. So Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alaska, good luck in the next few years. There are a lot of great companies that new grads want to work for in Oregon. So it's really crowded in the cities already, and it's only going to get worse. That means more people drinking all that beer we make here, getting in traffic and getting in my way, showing up on the hiking trails when I'm trying to get a hike in, and I'm trying to vlog or talk to the camera, and I look like an idiot because I'm in the woods talking to a camera. Yeah, it's just going to be more people seeing me do that. Number 3, the rain. If you like sunshine, stay out of Oregon. Oregon has great summers, but that's only like 3 months a year. The state of Oregon averages 35 inches of rain each year. The winter months tend to be the wettest, obviously. The counties near the Washington border along the western half of the state average about 70 clear days per year. Just 70. 365 days, we get 70 clear days. We get almost as many cloudy or rainy days as Phoenix gets sunny days. Whenever you talk to someone from Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada about the heat, they always have their go-to reply that makes it seem not as bad. They always tell you, but it's a dry heat. It's hot. You ain't fooling anyone. Just like Oregonians ain't fooling anyone when they say, well, if it wasn't for all this rain, we wouldn't have these beautiful trees and all this greenery. But yeah, the rain sucks for a lot of people here in Oregon, especially newcomers. Number 2, the homelessness. Oregon is one of the worst in the country when it comes to residents living on the street. Obviously, Portland having most of them. As a matter of fact, Portland is number 1 in homeless for a medium city. They're only beat out by the big cities like LA, New York, and San Francisco. Now, I've talked about this on other videos as to why Oregon and mostly Portland has such a big problem with homelessness. One thing is they have great programs to help out the homeless. So we get some that are making their way here to get some help. Another thing is we really don't chase them out. A lot of other cities will chase out the homeless or do whatever they can to get them off the streets and get them out of the town. Well, if you do that, you've just passed them on to someone else, made them someone else's problem down the road without addressing the issue. So that's why we have so many programs to hopefully help out. Now, a lot of people ended up on the streets because we had our real estate costs and our housing costs just jump through the roof over the last decade or so. And that put a whole bunch of people on the streets. There are 1,000,001 reasons people become homeless. Like I said in the California videos, everyone knows the highest percentage of homeless end up on the streets because they have mental issues or an addiction problem. One thing that never seems to be brought up is the crazy amount of runaways Oregon has living on its streets. Oregon is surrounded by 3 of the top 5 states in number of teen runaways. That's California, Washington, and Idaho. A lot of those kids come to Portland and other parts of Oregon just to get away from whatever situation they're in there because they know it's, I wouldn't say safe, but they're not going to be chased out and things like that, and there's help for them there. That's why a lot of kids will end up here. Go down to downtown Portland. I've actually seen it in Eugene and everything else like that. You see a lot of teenagers living on the streets here. Sad. And number 1, graduation rate. The high school graduation rate in Oregon is an embarrassment, and I'm totally not sure why. I've read article after article, and it's kind of weird. Now, before I go any further, we're talking averages, so stop typing. You don't need to call me a liar because your rural Oregon Outback school had a graduation rate of 100% in your class of 9 seniors that had their prom at the Dairy Queen or something. That's right, Jervis, Oregon, I'm talking about you. Now, this is where it gets weird. They have, on average, decent public schools. They don't have a terrible teacher to student ratio. Test scores are middle of the road compared to the rest of the nation. They just can't get people to put that funny hat and gown on. The good news is Oregon's graduation rate has steadily increased over the past few years. It still sucks, and other states have done better in the same amount of time, leaving Oregon to drop to the 2nd worst state in the country, 3rd if you count Washington, D.C. New Mexico and the District of Columbia are the only places with lower graduation rates. New Mexico 71.1% and the District of Columbia was 73.2%. Oregon as of 2018 was 76.7% graduation rate. That's bad. It sucks. Louisiana, Idaho, and Colorado have shot past them in the last couple of years. Congratulations, Mississippi. You don't suck at everything. But graduation rate, it is a big problem for any state. That's like the start of everything. Schools start everything. If you don't have good schools, good graduation rates, you have less people with opportunity, which means more problems down the line with crime, drugs, everything else. Graduating high school starts people on paths. If you don't graduate, you have a better chance of going down drugs and crime and everything else, that path. If you do graduate, you have a better chance of being a productive citizen. So that's why it's so important, and that's why it's number 1 on this list. Alright, so that is my top 10 reasons Oregon sucks. I hope you guys got some information out of it. Hope it was entertaining a little bit. Don't forget all the links below. Leave me a comment. Tell me if there's anything that you think makes Oregon suck more than something on this list. I'd love to hear it. Maybe I'll make a second one on this. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, don't forget the links. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.